When language in common use in any country becomes irregular and depraved, it is followed by their ruin and degradation. John Milton, English poet, polemist, and civil servant. All right. Good morning and welcome to another morning episode of the Liberty Dad podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. If you're tuning in live, thank you so much for giving me your time so early. Do me a favor, folks. If you enjoy the show, be sure to like and subscribe to my channel. And for the really serious folks out there, hit that bell so that you never miss an episode. All right. What are we talking about today? We're going to talk about, we have a lot to get through, and hopefully I can get it in the shortest amount of time possible. So recently, the Jacksonville Mayor Donna Deegan stirred it up. So let's pull this up on the screen, and we're going to dive right on into it. This is a local article from the Jacksonville.com. Mayor Deegan says Donald Trump's deportation plan is concentration camps type situation. Scrolling down here. By the way, folks, for those watching the show, do you see this? Like, I've got some highlights now that I can highlight web pages so I don't lose my place when I'm reading from web pages, and I don't have to try to sort through and be like, all right, where was that one thing that I wanted to say? I didn't want to read the whole article. So this is really cool. The plugin is called, what is the plugin called? What is the name of this plugin here? It's called Super Simple Highlighter. So anyway, so if you have a need to highlight article or highlight like things that you see on the web pages, super tongue tied, Super Simple Highlighter. Anyway, reading here. Jacksonville Mayor Donna Deegan said during an appearance on Times Radio in London that former President Donald Trump's immigration policy would amount to creating, quote, concentration camps for holding undocumented immigrants. Scrolling on here, to put people in what would really amount, this is quoting her, by the way, we'll play the video in a moment, to put people in what would really amount to a concentration camp type situation to round them out of the country doesn't seem to me to be very American thing to do, Deegan said during the interview with Times Radio, which broadcast across the United Kingdom. Jacksonville Sheriff T.K. Waters and City Council member Ron Salem denounced Deegan's use of the term concentration camp because of its connection to Nazi death camps. And I think was that everything? No, there was a little bit more. Where's oops. I think I got a little bit ahead of it here. Let's back up here. Page is not loading as fast as I expected. It's weird. All right, let's see here. Well, we'll do the best we can. Of course, you get all these cool new technology and things don't want to work. City Council member Jimmy Peluso, a Democrat, called it fake outrage day among Republicans. He said Deegan was referring to the kind of internment camps set up during World War II to hold people of Japanese descent. The Japanese were also in concentration camps, Peluso posted on X. It happened, it's documented, and Trump wants to use the same law that interned them to intern others. That is even more disgusting, end quote. And let's see. We'll scroll slowly so that the page loads. I don't know why the page isn't loading here. That's so weird. Cool technology. Oh no, page unresponsive. Okay, that's fine. We will move on. Apparently this page doesn't like being highlighted with my cool new technology that I just found this morning, but whatever. So we're going to dig into this and we're going to find out exactly. We're going to unpack all of this because there's actually quite a bit to unpack here. So let's take a look at the video and let's hear what Donna Deegan said. Now, I searched as best I could to watch the entire interview, and the only thing I can find is the clip that's been going around. So it appears, as far as I can tell, that radio broadcast has not put out the whole video yet. They just put out a little snippet. So we will just have to work with the snippet, and All we can work with is the video clip that we had that's put out. So we don't have the rest of it yet. All right, so let's see what we've got here. Here's that video.
Put people in what would really amount to a concentration camp type situation to round them out of the country doesn't seem to me to be a very American thing to do.
I look at the opinion polls and they suggest that most Americans do support mass deportations. In your own city of Jacksonville, a third of your population are black, and you've got a proportion of Latinos as well. And some of those demographics support this policy too.
Well, I haven't seen any poll, especially in my area, that indicates that most people would be for mass deportation.
No.
So if that is something you have seen, I haven't seen it myself.
No, just in your area, most people do. But I do suggest across America, there seems to be a very large slice of people, and some, I imagine, in your city too.
So let's pause here for a second. It's very interesting that she's like, well, I haven't seen it, but she also doesn't appear to have seen anything to the contrary. And I will tell you, as somebody who is married to an immigrant and has interfaced with a lot of immigrants. And when I say immigrants, I've met some that have come here illegally, and I've met some that, plenty that have come here legally. My personal experience is that in many cases, quite often, legal immigrants that have come here through the legal path tend to have stronger views on immigration than even Americans. I remember one guy that I worked with, he was from India. He was like, look, I support, kicking people out, and you should give jobs to Americans before you give them to immigrants. And I was like, dude, you are an immigrant. And he was here like on one of the HB1 visa. Right. And this guy was like basically saying, you should give jobs to Americans before even me, even though he was here and had a job. But and so my personal experience, which is not data per se, but my personal experience is that immigrants can be stronger on on opposing illegal immigration than even some Americans. So that's just what. But I think it's worthwhile to note that Mayor Deegan doesn't seem to have a firm idea, right or wrong, of her own city. So I think that's a problem. But let's continue.
Very mixed demographics.
Yeah, I'm sure that there would be some people that would probably be for that. I would just say that Jacksonville and the United States as a whole is we are a community and a nation of immigrants, and I would hope that people would say, yes, we absolutely must fix the broken immigration system. Let's pass a tough border law.
So right there, yes, I'm kind of tired of this line, to be honest with you. Like, we're a nation of immigrants. Yes, we are. Everybody knows that. You don't need to repeat it. It's not really saying anything of substance anymore. Okay. But then she's like, I hope that people would believe this. Right. So this is part of my issue that I have, is that she's speaking about, and I'm going to talk more about this in a minute, but she's speaking about things, and it doesn't appear that she has really understood what her own people, when I say own people, the people that she specifically represents and has been elected to govern, she doesn't have a firm idea who believes what specifically. Right now, the interviewer from London appears to know more about Jacksonville. He sounds like it. He could be wrong, but he at least sounds like it. He has more confidence in what he's saying about people in Jacksonville than does our own mayor. Just going on the clip here. Now, again, maybe she was caught off guard. In fairness, the video clip is only like a minute and 40 seconds. And there doesn't appear to be any longer video for which maybe she can clarify something, because sometimes in interviews, people get caught off guard. I don't know the context of this interview. I don't know if he asked her, if he invited her in to talk about, how Jacksonville's doing and so on and so forth. And then it just led into this conversation for which she wasn't quite prepared to have a conversation on, but chose to do it anyway. Or if he asked her direct questions. I don't know any of that context. So I have no idea. But again, the interviewer sounds, a little bit more knowledgeable. And that might not be a problem if we were talking about an interviewer here in Jacksonville. If I, as a podcaster, invited, Mayor Deegan on, and she came on, and I was asking her questions, and I did a whole bunch of research that maybe she was busy governing the city, and she couldn't do, right? And then I caught her off guard with some knowledge that I had that wouldn't be as bad. But we're talking about somebody from London. Nobody from some other country should know more about a city than the city's own mayor, ever, ever, ever. And she should, any mayor should be able to say, that's not true. I know the people that I govern. Let's continue.
But to put people in what would really amount to a concentration camp type situation to round them out of the country doesn't seem to me to be a very American thing to do.
Okay, I mean the use of the term concentration camp is loaded. You consider that's completely justified?
Well, if you're what
So I do like his question here. He's very calm and chill, and he's like, okay, it's a loaded term. He identifies it. He recognizes it, and then he says, do you think it's justified? That's a great question. It really is. Like, not like, hey, is that fair? Or are you being mean? It's like, is it justified? That is a perfect phrasing. I love the question.
would we call them? If you're rounding people up and putting them in camps, what would we call those? It's a concentration of people that are in a camp. I'm not suggesting anything beyond that, but I just think it seems rather inhumane to me.
Okay, so that's the interview that we got. That's what's going around. People had a lot of criticism about that. In fact, let's take a look at some of that criticism. Drawing from X here, we will take a peek at what we've got here. So let me see, bring things up on the screen so that I can see them. All right. So here we are. All right. The audacity of Donna Deegan to reduce the atrocities of the Holocaust to a political cheap shot is disgusting and beneath people of Jacksonville. The taxpayers footing the bill on her 2-week junket to London sent her there to bring back jobs, not lie about President Trump. This is Jacksonville Mayor Donna Deegan. By the way, if you're watching the screen and you see where, I'll get to that in a second. This is Jacksonville Mayor Donna Deegan. She claims that real Donald Trump is going to put immigrants in concentration camps. This is what happens when the retired fake news anchors get bored and run for mayor. I just want to point out here, if you're looking at the screen, you'll notice that Donna Deegan's name is in white, whereas Donald Trump's name, the tag on Twitter, is in blue. When you see that, what you're looking at is the mayor or somebody on the mayor's behalf running her account has untagged herself. You can untag yourself from things on Twitter. So that's what happened here. So she saw this. And I noticed there were a lot of comments where the mayor or, again, somebody on her behalf has untagged herself. It's a practice that I'm not particularly excited about, but it is what it is. Looking forward to Mayor Deegan calling out her buddy, border czar Kamala Harris, for jailing children in cages. I'll wait. Let's see. What is wrong with Donna Deegan? Why is she giving an interview on British radio station? And why is she talking about putting people in concentration camps? The worst mayor ever has gone batshit nuts. Good Lord, Jacksonville, we deserve so much better than this liberal BS. Some strong words there. Is there a single Democrat in the country who isn't completely brain damaged? More strong language. All right. Wow. Jacksonville's Democrat mayor, Donna Deegan. Again, you see here where she has untagged herself. Falsely claimed President Trump is rounding up migrants like Hitler rounded up the Jews. Very offensive. She should resign. That's Laura Loomer. I'm not sure that I would take what she says too far into an account. Anyway, what absolutely ridiculous. Stop the fear mongering. This is why Jacksonville needs to go back to Republican leadership. Statements like yours is what completely decimates any credibility you have. I've been kind of strong against Donna Deegan so far, but Republicans, don't you wait. Your turn is coming up shortly. All right, continuing on with a few more comments. Community notes. Can you please verify Donna Deegan, mayor of Jacksonville, is inciting violence through lies and deception? I'm not really sure that's what community notes do, but okay. Well, that is just a lie. He wants to deport them, but only the illegals. We'll talk about that in a minute. This conflation thing you people do, lumping criminal aliens, false claims of asylum, and migrants all in with actual immigrants who followed the law and demonstrated their ability to assimilate, is gross. Last comment, she's awful. A big spending liberal. Okay, I'm not going to get to that part of Republicans, but anyway, you get the gist. Using over half city reserves to fund her ridiculous, wasteful budget for 1 year. Gonna have to work on some grammar there, Jody. Meanwhile, Helene Yard Waste is still littering communities. She'll bankrupt the city if she's not reined in. Um, well, I do agree that some of the yard waste is still out there. Mine is still awaiting. All right. So that's what Twitter had to say, at least all the negative comments. There were some positive ones out there as well. But here's, let's see, what else we got here? Oh, yes. TK Waters. So the sheriff jumped in on this. So let's take a look at what the sheriff said, because that's interesting. So here's the sheriff. Mayor Deegan's statement to the Times London regarding President Trump's border and immigration policy is shocking and reckless. As the sheriff of Jacksonville, it is disappointing to see our mayor equate a common sense immigration policy with one of the most horrific atrocities of the 20th century. Here are the facts. Kamala Harris, who Deegan supports, has allowed a wide open border and millions of illegal crossings. Along with the surge of violent criminals, fentanyl has poured into our country and poisoned our communities. He goes on to say, this year alone, our officers have seized nearly 15 kilograms of fentanyl, enough to kill over 7 million Americans. And since Harris took office, JSO officers have responded to 970 fentanyl related deaths. Something must be done. Only President Donald J. Trump can secure our border and restore safety, security, and economic prosperity to the American people. The people of Jacksonville expect more from our mayor than knee-jerk responses about President Trump's policies. It is downright shameful. TK Waters, Sheriff, Duval County, Florida. So it seems like a lot of people have gotten in on criticizing Donna Deegan for using Nazi references. However, I would be remiss not to point out that well, Republicans aren't so clean themselves. So here's a few headlines that I pulled up that are a little on the older side. Some of them are actually, I think, even from this year. GOP House candidate apologizes after implying Democrats are leading U.S. toward another Holocaust. That's from the Minnesota Reformer. From CNN, House Republican leaders condemn Marjorie Taylor Greene's Holocaust comparison after 5 days and a wave of outrage. From The Guardian, Michigan GOP chair refuses to apologize for comparing gun control to Holocaust. From NBC News, GOP Representative Davidson compares vaccine mandates to the Holocaust. And then the last one from the Oklahoman, top Republicans denounce Oklahoma GOP for comparing vaccine mandates to Jewish persecution. So the truth here when it comes to Holocaust comparisons is that everybody does it. And when the other team does it, then this team, whichever one that is, complains and caterwauls and says, oh, I can't believe you're making Holocaust comparisons. And then the tables turn. And then the other team complains and says, well, I can't believe you're making Holocaust comparisons. So let's just do this. Since everybody's doing it, shut up about whining about it. Period. I mean, I've done it. Everybody's done it, right? Good, right or wrong, everyone has done it. So at this point, the argument is really no longer should we be doing it? Everybody already is. If you want to make the argument that team A shouldn't be doing it and you're on team B, well, then when team B does it, you better speak up. But that's not what happens. When you can also throw in team C there for the Libertarian Party as well. Right. But the truth is, very, very few people complain about their own team in the same way for doing the same things that some other team has done. So as far as I'm concerned, all the complaining about Holocaust comparisons, throw them out the window. I don't really care. Not interested. Not until I start seeing people be a little bit more consistent in their views. And yeah, people can argue their way and say, well, it's different this time. You know, you're just making an excuse. You're just justifying your team. That's all you're doing. Just be honest. And I'm going to call all of you out and then just say it's BS. So whatever. Now, after this intermission coming up here, we're going to really dig into this because I was really curious and I was like, why did she even say this? And there's an interesting video from Trump. We're going to play that. We're going to get into some definitions about concentration camps. We're going to talk about the Alien Enemies Act, which which is being referenced by uh, by people criticizing Trump, and he mentioned himself. We're going to get into all this, and we're going to kind of set the record straight in a sense. So, and Republicans, if you thought I was harsh on Mayor Deegan, your turn's coming up. So let's get to that intermission.
In a world where tyranny spreads like a virus, a movement to restore your liberty grows. In Chase Oliver's America, you can say goodbye to high inflation, lockdowns and mandates, and endless wars. The middle class grows stronger when they get to keep their whole paycheck.
More and more people are waking up to the fact that the two-party system is really a one-party system in this country. Both of them have been driving up inflation. Both of them run debts and deficits every single year that causes our Treasury to print trillions of dollars.
Now, the 2024 presidential nominee for the Libertarian Party is Chase Oliver. He could make a difference.
We've tried to work within the system. We've tried to compromise. It's time to dare to be different. It's time to build a competitive third party. Stand up and say no more and take our freedom back.
I'm Chase Oliver, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
All right, we're back. All right, let's dig into this. So, what in the world caused Donna Deegan to even say this? Because it may or may not surprise you, depends on how closely you are paying attention. But here are his comments that's driving this. And then we're going to dig in and we're going to learn, we're going to drop some knowledge today, and then I'm going to level some criticism all around. So let's get that video going right here.
Operation Aurora. In honor of Jocelyn, Nungari, Lakin, Riley, beautiful Lakin, Rachel, Morin, and all of the others that are dead and or mortally wounded at the hands of migrants who should never have been allowed into our country. I'm announcing today that upon taking office, we will have an Operation Aurora at the federal level. To expedite the removals of these savage gangs, and I will invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Think of that. 1798. This was put there. 1798. That's a long time ago, right? To target and dismantle every migrant criminal network operating on American soil. Who would have ever thought that a president or a future president would ever have to stand here and say such things? Who would think that that's even possible to have to do? So many things are changed in the last 4 years, but that's the state of our country now after Kamala and Joe Biden have just absolutely destroyed our country. We're a country in tremendous distress. We're a failing country. We're laughed at all over the world. We will send elite squads of ICE, Border Patrol, and federal law enforcement officers to hunt down, arrest, and deport every last illegal alien gang member until there is not a single one left in this country.
We need the elite ones. The regular ones apparently can't do it. So we're going to get these elite ones, and I don't know where they're going to get their training and how this is. Don't know how that's going to work, but they're going to be elite. Okay.
And if they come back into our country, they will be told it is an automatic 10-year sentence in jail with no possibility of parole.
Oh, wow. That's wild. So let me get this straight. We're going to use our tax dollars to create some, elite squads. They're going to go out and grab all these people and remove them, right? And we're talking about, he's right now talking about illegal gangs, violent criminals, like the Venezuelan gang members that were taking over, only a couple of complexes, as we found out. Okay, fair enough, right? I'm good with removing violent criminals who are not U.S. citizens. whether you're here legally or not. Okay? I'm okay with that. All right. But then if they come back, we're going to put them in jail for 10 years. What does that mean? That means the American people are going to have to pay for this. My tax dollars are going to go toward housing and all the things that come with it: housing, food, medical care, all of that stuff that comes with being in prison. Right. And I don't know if you guys have heard this, but there have been like people getting transgender surgeries and stuff like that. So like there's an awful lot being paid for that. I'm not so sure that all those people that are like, yeah, whoa, we're going to put them in jail. Like, okay, well, yeah, woo, your tax dollars is going to pay for all this stuff, and probably a lot of stuff that you don't want it to be paid for, on top of the fact that you're paying for somebody to basically live here and be fed and get medical care. Some of those Americans may not be getting all that, but damn it, these illegals who come back, they'll sure get it. All right, let's continue.
And I'm hereby calling for the death penalty for any migrant that kills an American citizen or a law enforcement officer.
People do love their death penalty. They really do. And that one's hard to argue. I get it. Like if you got somebody who's here, and they're not a citizen, right? Like I can understand where people would feel this way. But I think there's an interesting comment here, based on what he was saying. Oops, that's not the one that I wanted. Give me bubbled up too quickly here. All right, Trump must be invested in private prisons. It might be, right? Like that's a question to ask. Are there private prisons? Is there an incentive here to get more prisoners in there? That's what we've got to start thinking. We got to ask these kind of questions. But the crowd was too excited to hear that we're going to jail people and kick them out and put them to death. They were just too excited. You know, Caesar has given them their circus, right? And he'll give the bread to the gladiators, if you will, to use a bit of an analogy there. All right. So let's get into this. First, let's talk about some definitions on concentration camp, because I think that's the first thing that we need to do and find out, okay, was Mayor Deegan's use of the term, was it appropriate in any way? So here's from Britannica. Britannica says, concentration camp, internment center for political prisoners and members of national or minority groups who are confined for reasons of state security, exploitation, or punishment, usually by executive decree or military order. Persons are placed in such camps often on the basis of identification with a particular ethnic or political group rather than as individuals, and without benefit either of indictment or fair trial. In other words, concentration camp is where we put people without due process. The foundation of America is due process. And I hate to break it to people, even if you oppose illegal immigrants coming over, which I can sympathize with, even if you oppose that, you should never, ever oppose due process, ever. As one commenter, I don't know if I have the comment, I don't know if I can pull that comment up, but there was a comment I saw floating. I think it was today. Was it today? Where did it go? Let me go back up here and see if I can find that comment. Or maybe it was, yeah, there it is. Here it is. Take the guns first, due process later. We are talking about a president, a former president, who shocked people when he suggested we can skip due process for Americans. So, Americans, let me speak to you and ask you, should you really be that excited about not giving due process to illegal immigrants when we're talking about the same guy who has already suggested skipping due process for American citizens? I mean, kind of put two and two together, people. Sounds tyrannical to me, but you dopes are too busy cheering. Anyway, let's get to the next definition. We want to make sure that we cover our bases here. All right. So this one comes from Wikipedia. And Wikipedia says a concentration camp is a form of internment camp for confining political prisoners or politically targeted demographics, such as members of national or minority ethnic groups, on the grounds of state security or for exploitation or punishment. Okay. It's relatively similar to what Britannica said. And then over here at Holocaust Encyclopedia, the term concentration camp refers to a camp in which people are detained or confined, usually under harsh conditions and without regard to legal norms of arrest and imprisonment that are acceptable in a constitutional democracy. Every one of these definitions, like there aren't definitions that paint concentration camps as maybe a good thing. So the real question here is, should Donna Deegan have used that term? In my opinion, she should not have. Okay? She shouldn't have, without being able to clearly articulate why it's applicable in this particular case. However, as we're going to find out, there may be an argument, even if she was incapable of making it. So let me show you another page here. This comes from the Brennan Center. Let me pull that up. Where did you go? This is about the Alien Enemies Act. It's called the Alien Enemies Act Explained. And so we're gonna talk about, okay, now Trump has said he's going to invoke this. He's going to deal with this problem. And I agree there is a problem, right? There was like an interview the other day with JD Vance, and the interviewer was like, she's like looking at her notes and she's like, well, it turns out there was only a couple of houses that were, kind of taken over. Like, wait, did you? And he called her out, rightfully so. He was like, do you hear yourself? It's like, only a couple? In America, are we really going to accept this idea that a couple of housing developments, a couple of apartment complexes were taken over by gangs from another country? Not even our own damn gangs, right? We're not talking like the Crips and the Bloods who are here and they're doing their thing, which again is illegal. We're talking about a foreign gang. That's even worse. And then she's like downplaying it like, oh, it was only a couple. The answer to how many should ever be taken over in America should always be exactly, unambiguously, unequivocally 0, ever. And any journalist who downplays it, we should come close to tar and feathering them. I said come close. Okay, I'm not suggesting we go out and we attack people, but I'm saying that should be the level of our anger at journalists for even uttering such words. All right, the Alien Enemies Act. Let's talk about this. So the detention and deportation power poses an alarming risk of abuse and rights violations in both wartime and peacetime. We're in peacetime, just in case you guys didn't know. What is the Alien Enemies Act? The Alien Enemies Act of 1798 is a wartime authority. All right, so it was created for wartime. There's more to it. That allows the president to detain or deport the natives and citizens of an enemy nation. Okay? The intent of it was an enemy nation, one that we're in conflict with. The law permits the president to target these immigrants without a hearing and based only on their country of birth or citizenship. Although the law was enacted to prevent foreign espionage and sabotage in wartime. Okay, so think about this for a second. The president, the former president, just said as a campaign promise, I'm going to invoke a law that was enacted to prevent foreign espionage and sabotage in wartime. Okay? That's not what's happening. Now, it's egregious what's happening. In my opinion, the answer is to bring back like the Black Panthers and say, all right, citizens, start patrolling your neighborhoods. Because clearly the government is incapable of protecting you. So it looks like you're going to have to do it yourself. You are hereby deputized. And I know my more liberal viewers or in audience is not going to like hearing that. But at the end of the day, you have to admit, you have to be honest. It is insane that we even are talking about a complex, an apartment complex being taken over by foreign nationals. That's crazy. That's insane. Something has to be done, and it apparently isn't. Yeah, I get it. The police responded, blah, blah, blah. It should have never taken place in the first place. Should have never happened in the first place. All right. But now he's invoking a law that was entirely meant for wartime, for espionage, sabotage. This is for people that might be here to that we're in where we're like, let's say we're in conflict with Mexico, and then Mexicans are here, like Mexican citizens or natives. They're here to try to disrupt the war effort and make us lose. That's what this is for. This isn't for gangs that have come over here. Even if like, maybe we like the country. Like, I don't have any personal beef with Venezuela. I've got Venezuelan friends. Okay. I don't have any beef with Venezuela, not as a country. Right. I have beef with the Venezuelan gangs coming over here. But that's not what we're talking about here. This is talking about a national crisis. All right. And so continue on. Although the law was enacted to prevent foreign espionage and sabotage in wartime, it can be and has been critical word there, critical set of words, wielded against immigrants who have done nothing wrong, have evinced no signs of disloyalty, and are lawfully present in the United States. Present in the United States. Okay. So we have evidence, historical evidence, that this law has been used to abuse people who have done nothing wrong lawfully in the United States. And there's no evidence that they were here to disrupt or cause problems. That we have evidence of it. He wants to invoke a law that has been used to harm people unjustly. This is the former president talking. He wants to invoke a law that will remove or allow him to get around due process. And we're talking to, again, the same man who has suggested skipping out on due process for American citizens. All right, let's continue on. Has the Alien Enemies Act been used in the past? Yes, the Alien Enemies Act has been invoked 3 times, each time during a major conflict: the War of 1812, World War I, and World War II. In World Wars I and II, the law was a key authority behind detentions, expulsions, and restrictions targeting German, Austro-Hungarian, Japanese, and Italian immigrants based solely on their ancestry. The law is best known for its role in Japanese internment, a shameful part of U.S. history for which Congress, presidents, and the courts have apologized. Okay, so we've already used this law to impose upon Japanese Americans. Actually, we're like, oh, you're Japanese? Get in the camp. Right? We've used it for that purpose, all because they were Japanese. Right? By the way, it's not mentioned here, but I just want to point out on a side note that the Japanese internment, that was facilitated by the U.S. Census. So 1940s, they're using the census to figure out where are these quote unquote enemies. Just want to throw out there, imagine all the data that the government has now to work with. Just throwing that out there. Okay. You might think that makes things better. I don't. I think that makes things worse. Anyway, that's a side point. All right. Under what conditions can the president invoke the Alien Enemies Act? The president may invoke the Alien Enemies Act in times of declared war or when a foreign government threatens or undertakes an invasion or predatory incursion against the U.S. territory. Now that gets a little dicey because a lot of people are like, oh, we're under invasion because, this country is sending all their migrants. But then those same people will say, well, the Democrats are doing it. So is it really an invasion if our own people are doing it? And what are we doing about those people? We're so worried about, okay, let's look at it this way. How about we accept the idea that some other country is sending their dregs of society and it's being facilitated and assisted by some of our own countrymen, right? Like, let's just assume that for a moment. The Republicans are like, oh, the Democrats are allowing this to happen. Okay, we're not going to argue that point. Shouldn't you take care of Democrat first? Like, if they're being facilitated by people inside, then take care of the mole in your own house. But no, they're proposing that we use a very old law to take out the people. And the real question is, Will we do this in any way that was more fair than it has been used in the past? I'm going to argue no. The president has inherent authority to repel these kinds of sudden attacks, an authority that necessarily implies the discretion to decide when an invasion or predatory incursion is underway. Okay, fair enough. That's what the law said. So maybe he can use it. Okay, he can say, hey, you know what, we're going to use this. What he can do and what he should do are not necessarily the same. Continuing on down here, I don't want to read all of it. The link is in the show notes. I encourage you to go read it. The Alien Enemies Act discriminates against immigrants based on their country of citizenship, more broadly based on their ancestry. The breadth of the law's discrimination is apparent on the face of the law and from its history. What do they say about history? There's a quote about history, something about people learning from it. By its text, the Alien Enemies Act covers not only the citizens of a foreign belligerent, but also the natives or individuals who were born in the enemy state but renounced their citizenship and no longer owe allegiance to that state. In other words, this is how we got the Japanese. Like, hey, you're Japanese. Yeah, but I'm a U.S. citizen. I love America. Go fight those people that attacked Pearl Harbor. Nah, too bad. Go to jail. That's basically what happened. That's what we did. Okay. And if you think it can't happen again, you're the reason it might. So this is dangerous. There's more to this. All right. Would repeal of the Alien Enemies Act leave the United States vulnerable in wartime? When Congress, this is a really important part. When Congress passed the Alien Enemies Act in 1798, the United States had no immigration law and only a nascent criminal law. The country did not have any federal intelligence or law enforcement agencies. In other words, we did not have other mechanisms to deal with immigration. Whether you think it's right or wrong, open borders, closed borders, the reason this was enacted is because there was nothing else to work with and to deal with a potential real problem. Now we have a plethora of laws, but instead of Trump coming out and saying, we're going to fix our immigration system, we're going to get the laws on the books working as they're intended, and we're going to make it easy for legitimate people to come over here, whatever he determines. Rather than say that, he's just going to say, F it. Let's go use this law that gives me all kind of crazy authority. Sounds kind of tyrannical to me. That's the end of that article. So from my perspective, this is a huge problem. It's a problem from the Democrats. It's a problem from the Republicans, right? You know, presumably the Democrats are involved in this. I don't know how many, but it does appear that way. Republicans aren't doing any better. They just seem to basically be feeding off of each other. But let's break down some of these problems a little bit further. Number one, Donna Deegan. We're talking about Donna Deegan today, Mayor Deegan. If we accept that a mayor should interject into national politics without provocation, which I don't, I think she shouldn't have said anything. But if she does, if any mayor does, they are right to criticize Trump's plan if they disagree with it. That's fine, right? Because I think it's a bad plan. So I don't have a problem with that necessarily. I do think she was wrong in the rhetoric that she used because it's not quite clear that it's muddy, right? You've got concentration camp that can refer to Nazis and the Holocaust, which was horrible on its face, and entirely. It was just absolutely horrendous. But then you've got like what appeared to be a meaningful use in the United States for internment camps. Hey, you might be part of the enemy. We don't know. We need to safeguard ourselves. Now, I'm not saying I agree with that, but what I'm saying is like there's an argument to be made there. But then it went a step further, and we put people into camps that did not belong into camps. Why? Because we basically suspended any level of due process. But at the time this law was created, there was nothing else to work with. So in my opinion, you can use this kind of rhetoric if you want, but you damn well better have an answer. Saying, she kind of went on this like wordplay where she was like, well, there's a concentration of people. What would you call that? Oh, okay. Well, our normal jails are a concentration of people. Are those concentration camps? Like we got murderers and rapists, and all kind of violent criminals concentrated in one small area, a jail. Is that now a concentration camp? It's a terrible argument. And if you don't have a better argument for why you're going to use that level of rhetoric, then don't. Why? Because it undermines your own criticism. I mean, think about all the criticism that she got. Like most people didn't come out and they were like, well, I disagree with you using that language, but I can kind of see her point. No, her critics were all on it. They were all over it. And they were like, it's terrible. She should resign. Terrible mayor, blah, 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 all this, crazy liberal, all these crazy comments, right? And it undermined her own criticism, which I think was valid criticism. Say, hey, should we really be invoking this act? like, is that a good idea? But now what might have been good criticism is all washed away based on the rhetoric that she used. But in Jacksonville residents, let's be honest, they didn't elect. So this is the reason why I oppose her even having a comment. Jacksonville residents did not elect her for national opinions. Now, they might agree with her opinions, but that's not why they elected her. They elected her to run Jacksonville, to govern Jacksonville. And she has her hands full with that. She has no business. Now, and I get it. You get on an interview, I'm a podcaster. I'm going to ask you whatever questions I feel that I think are interesting. And you need to be ready to sidestep and say, hey, I would love to answer that. But I am a mayor of a city of many people. Some of them voted for me. Some of them did not. Some of them support this idea that you're asking me about. Some of them do not. It would not be prudent for me to speak about that. My role is to talk about the things under my area of responsibility. That's what she should have said and left it at that. Similarly, Sheriff T.K. Waters was not elected for his opinions on Donna Deegan. He was not elected for his opinions on Donald Trump. He was elected as part of our executive branch at a local of the local government to oversee it. He was responsible for local law enforcement. And I actually have more criticism of him for weighing in than I do Donna Deegan. Donna Deegan is a politician. Okay. Sheriff T.K. Waters is part of law enforcement. He is the person that could be responsible for locking people up. That is responsible. Donna Deegan doesn't have that power. So I want you to imagine something. Imagine now that we've kind of taken an overview of the Alien Enemies Act, I want you to imagine that Trump gets elected. He invokes the Alien Enemies Act. Now I want you to imagine that as it did in the past, it goes too far. This is not out of the realm. It's already happened. So I'm not creating a hypothetical that couldn't happen. I'm creating a hypothetical that could happen again. Now, I want you to imagine that the mayor drafts some local legislation in city council. Maybe they largely agree and says, hey, this is going too far, not in our city. And we're going to impose some local legislation that says we don't want federal agents coming into our city and doing this, right? Whatever this is, right? Who will T.K. Waters serve, Trump or Duval? Because now that he's spoken out and he's rebuked Deegan, I think it casts doubt. So every immigrant that may be here legally, right? Let's just say legally, or even people that are here illegally, but otherwise, other than violating the simple law of crossing a border, other than that, they are otherwise productive, good members of society, people that we would otherwise want, right? So I want you to imagine like all of those people now, and you've got the Alien Enemies Act invoked, and they're going around and they're rounding people up, and we're starting to see that, hey, this is going a little bit far. And maybe certain cities might say, not in our neighborhood, no. And now at this point, I have no faith that T.K. Waters will serve Duval because he's busy running his mouth about Trump so he can score political points. It's unacceptable. So in my opinion, the Democrats and the Republicans have all failed here. Every last damn one of them. They can all, I'm not going to say, they can all go to hell. I'll say it. Now, who should have a comment? City council members. In my opinion, they're the only ones who should have said anything. They are the best situated to either support or rebuke the mayor. That's what they do. And then citizens, if they determine that their respective council member is supporting or rebuking, and they're in alignment with that support or rebuke, then the citizens can reach out to their council members and say, good job, council member, for speaking up, or, hey, that's I disagree with you. And I, as a citizen that you represent, I need you to know this, right? And then the city council members, they can in turn go, wow, I spoke up in support of Donna Deegan, and apparently my constituency is angry about that. Maybe I need to reflect on that. That is how it should work if we want a properly run society. We should not have everybody rushing to rebuke and support and denounce everyone and everything. Stay in your damn lane. Deegan, your lane, Mayor Deegan, your lane is Jacksonville. Stay in it. TK Waters, your lane is Duval and law enforcement. Stay in it. Now, hopefully Trump doesn't invoke the Alien Enemies Act. As conservatives love to regularly point out, we have laws on the books to deal with immigrants. So ignoring them is no reason to invoke a law that is more dangerous and opens America up to civil unrest. Because I want you to think about something. People run their mouths all the time about civil war. Okay, well, let's continue my little scenario. What happens if this law is invoked and used so broadly, it goes too far and people start pushing back? What happens when you go to the house of a man who is an American citizen married to an immigrant from a country that was designated the enemy or what have you, and you're trying to take his wife? What happens when he pushes back violently? What do we do about that? Has anybody thought about that? Or are we too damn busy cheering our guy on because we can't figure out how to use the laws that we have on the books? We have all these laws and we can't use them. So we either create more laws or we hearken back to a time when we need to use acts and laws and legislation that were designed for a time when we didn't have all these laws. Like, it's crazy. We're losing our damn minds, America. The Alien Enemies Act was the foundation for the internment of Americans who were of Japanese descent. It was despicable. We should never, ever talk about invoking it again. Why? Because we have history. We have evidence that it was abused. And we should never want the abuse of anyone. But if you're an America First person, you should at least agree that we should never want to abuse our own citizens. And we should never trust a man who has already talked about discarding due process with discarding due process of people that we don't like. Because it isn't long before you're the next one. So there wasn't a violent pushback at that time, but today's political environment is not the same. It's just not. And I'm not so confident that a second go wouldn't cause some violent pushback. So America, if you're watching, if you're listening, I suggest you pay attention. Arm yourself with knowledge, arm yourself in general, and call up your elected officials and tell them, stay in your lane. All right, folks, I got to get out of here. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this episode informative and inspiring. Be sure to catch me Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. for an informed discussion on politics and culture. Be sure that you're subscribed to my YouTube channel or my Rumble channel. You can go to youtube.libertydad.com or you can go to rumble.libertydad.com. While you're there, let me know how I'm doing by leaving me a comment. Last but not least, if you're a champion of liberty, your business is people and your product is liberty. I want you to have a great week. Catch you next time. But for now, I'm out.